Let's talk about Hellas. Hellas is definitely not one of the most favorite maps in the game, and there are good reasons for that, but I personally think that you can definitely very well play this map as well. So let's dive into it and show you what you can do on this map. Firstly, you gotta know that this map is very symmetrical, so you don't really have to worry about all the positions that I paint in here and how to adjust them to the other side, because they are exactly the same, just mirrored. Alright, I've got my stretch sketch tool here. So I will just paint in a couple of positions and I will also show them in-game. Let's start with the heavy tanks first, actually. The heavy side here is very distinctive in that it does have this little ditch here with a little bit of water in there. Well, actually, there are two of these canals here. But mainly I want to point out here, it's very important that you don't dip into the canal right at the start of the game, because you don't know if the enemies are not just going to push you with a lot of tanks immediately, and also maybe your teammates are not intending to follow you, so you will not want to go in there once right at the start. So my preferred position here for the start is to just start out over here. You can see that if I'm just moving up to the side here, then I can actually have some hull down position and shoot the enemies. If they are going down into the river, then I can shoot them from above quite easily, because they are dipping their nose down, making it even easier to penetrate them. This is something that is quite effective for the start. And if I'm not having the most armor, then with some autoloader I would also often just go right behind there, just positioning myself right there, so I can then have the same kind of shots as well. But that only works if you're having some decent armor at least. Otherwise, it is a little bit of a risky move to do right at the start here. But of course, you will also have to think about what to do as the next step here, because quite often enemies are doing something very similar. Let's draw that in. Often we are seeing some heavy tank of the enemies moving into the B cap. We are seeing some heavy tank moving up to the same spot that you're in, basically, and some other heavy tank potentially camping over there, and also some TD over there, some TD over there, some TD over there. That's something that is very basic here and that is very often seen on this map, so we will have to figure out an option to make use of these positions and still find a way of pushing forwards. The most obvious way to go about it, of course, would be just to push into the ditch here, and then you can take some hull down position right in front of the enemies. Sometimes that does work fairly well, as you can then shoot the tanks to the side here, and you also have the TD to the front there, but that TD is also in some position where it does have a bush, so you cannot necessarily see it, and it might shoot you into the side of the turret once you're shooting those tanks to your flank there. It's also worth pointing out here that if you're doing this kind of move, then you will have some teammates also having to come up from the side here in order to support and crossfire this tank in the B cap, which can just not escape anymore at all, which is also why I would not recommend you to go into base B. Don't play supremacy for the caps, just play it for punishing the ones getting into the caps here. But what I also want to point out here, because there are so many positions that can potentially shoot you if you are driving up to the front of base B, and often you're also getting counter pushed there, I mostly don't even do this move, and I tend to prefer just going for the inner canal here. Or let's just draw it in a little bit cleaner. I would just mostly drive around like this and get into the canal to this position right there, where I can then crossfire the TD to the front over there. I can crossfire this heavy over there, and if I peek out a bit further, then I can also shoot the TD position over there. Often this is a little bit safer than the other canal here. But of course, you're also not necessarily granted to have that much backup right behind you if your teammates are rather in the area right behind the A cap. I would say so much about the heavies for the heavy side. I will also point out some medium-sided position for the heavies sooner or later, but let's go for the TDs first, just to complete this flank here. I would also just want to point out here, the TDs are already put in one into the map here, the one behind A that can shoot in towards base B. If you do not have any armor, then it might be too risky to do this move, so I would maybe just go for either this bush behind here or I would even go for this bush over there, because those allow me to then crossfire into this canal as well. This one here will be a little bit sooner to get into position. The other one has proven to be a little bit safer. You are a little bit more passive, that has to be mentioned, and you're also a bit more isolated in case the enemies are getting aggressive on you. You will just not have the easiest way of escaping there. Sticking to the TDs here, another position that I would like to go for quite often is this one, which does allow you to then have some nice crossfire towards the heavy side still. You can shoot into the B cap, you can have some shots over there, you can maybe also shoot into the middle area if some enemy is making a move over there. You can shoot towards the TD area, towards the mediums, various different options here for you, and also in case the enemies are making their way forwards on the heavy side, then you can actually still have some hold down position and crossfire over there. You can see this is a very strong position that does allow for a lot of variety, although it is not necessarily granted to give you that much of an aggressive starting point right in the beginning. Lastly, maybe I want to point out this little hill over there. You can also sometimes go there with a TD, although it is not really my preferred spot there. I would rather go there with a light tank, for example, as it does allow you for some nice crossfire or some nice spots there. But it is not my favorite first spotting position, because this one does not grant you a lot of damage potential in the foreseeable future, let's say like this, because you will have to relocate, otherwise you're not safe to stand on the hill. That's what I want to say here. So much rather I take the spotting position with the light tanks. Do I go for the light tanks already? Yeah, let's go for the light tanks and medium tanks. So spotting positions now. Spotting position, my main spotting position on this map would be here, actually not right in this bush that many people would go for. Although the bush does allow you to spot up a lot more enemies potentially, it is also much more likely to get you shot as well, because enemies will have a fairly easy time of shooting you from various different angles, and you will have to just spot, and then you turn your turret to the side to shoot the enemies, and then you just end up getting shot. So what I often like doing here is just positioning myself right next to this little rock here, this boulder there, where I can just pre-aim the enemies as they are moving towards the medium flank, and can have some nice crossfire over there. This is much more safe to get off an early shot into them, maybe multiple shots if you're playing an autoloader, or if there are some heavies also crossing over there. You will definitely have some shots from that position, and you are very safe. Although of course you're not having the most spots possible. This is what I feel like is the best one. With a medium tank I would often do the same thing for the start, just for this early shot, before relocating towards the medium flank then. And there is obviously the best position here, or the main position in the corner on both sides actually. Let's actually paint that one in over there as well. This one will be a red medium. Let's just drop it there. There will also be some mediums to the front there, of course, in most situations. So definitely the move towards the corner would be the next one. You can be hull down pretty much there. A little bit better, by the way, on the north spawn here. That does have a better hull down position than a south spawn, as it doesn't completely cover your tank there all too well. So slight difference here for the map. Then some people are thinking about just going for the C cap here as well. They are going maybe towards this area or right into the C cap, but you have to be very careful about this, because you can get cross-fired by the TDs, and also you might get pushed from the front. There might be even some campers in this area over there shooting you, and you can also get pushed from behind. So I would not recommend doing this move, unless if you are clear to have an advantage, then you can actually risk going there in order to push out forwards here, this medium flank. With the heavy, by the way, I would also recommend going for this medium spot over there, as it is probably the best one for pushing. If you are getting to the pushes here already, I think we've got all the main basic starting points covered here. If we are thinking about where to push in the safest way possible on a medium flank, then you should definitely have in mind that this one should be the way to go for. pushing out this area over here because of the TDs to the side and others just crossfiring you, something that will be out of your view range. So you definitely want to avoid those shots from happening, and that works in the best way by just sticking close to the side here. They can also use some rocks and just work your way forwards. Some other position I would definitely not go for here would be to just drop down here into this area beneath C, because there you can also be very much stuck, as you can get shot from the TD. Over there you can have some other camping guys from over there shooting you, and the mediums might fall back also shooting you, and someone might even shoot you from above, and you might not have a way of escaping because of the low ground. You will need a lot longer to escape, and you will have to reverse back there, and this is not necessarily going to work. So quite often you're just going to die there. It only works as a bait, kind of, if you are just very sure to win the upper side of the corner as well. Other pushing opportunities here for this map would also be something like through the middle. That's something that people often do, but I can really not recommend it either, because in the middle there you're also on a low ground. You will have some bush to your front that can shoot you there. You might get absolutely stuck, and retreating will be very difficult to do. So please do not do this kind of move here, because you will just not have any advantage there. Sometimes you can also think about just with a heavy tank going like rather just through the hills here into the back of the enemy mediums, something like that. If you do see that you are having the advantage already, then I think this is probably the safest way to go about it, because you can stop at any point and still retreat with your tank destroyers and mediums somewhere behind you. In some rare situations you will also not be able to push forwards on the heavy side nor on the medium side, so maybe you can also think about just moving up towards the middle over here, where you can potentially just come in there and crossfire the enemies from different positions. I also like this kind of flanking opportunity through the middle area here, but that is really nothing you want to do at the start, again, because there are strong TD positions with bushes to the front, so you might end up getting stuck and counter pushed, and that's definitely something you want to avoid. So please only do this if you are sure that you don't have any other options, and that you do have some kind of advantage that you can maybe surprise the enemies with some crossfire there. Sometimes you can also see some tank destroyers camping in this area behind here, or on the other side just the same. This can of course work to some degree, but I would not recommend it, because you don't really have a proper way out and you're not all too effective. You can only shoot the enemies once they are overpeaking to your front, and that is not guaranteed to happen. So your teammates might just push forwards and then you're out of the fight, or your teammates might just get out-traded or whatever, and you will just struggle to get back there as well, because you can constantly get crossfired from other tanks here. So I would recommend just not going for this one, and rather sticking to this position here, where you can still have some better angles and shoot the enemies a bit earlier. I think this covers all the main positions for this map. I hope you learned something from it. See you on the next stream or on the next video. Goodbye.